Yo, yo, yo. Thanks for tuning in to the 26th episode of J Talks Crypto. I told you guys that I do stupid shit for likes, comments, subscriptions. And guess what? If you like, comment, and subscribe before we hit 1,000, you could win an open dime. What the fuck is an open dime? Look it up. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin, obviously, a node, mining, what the fuck are their differences, because this shit seems to be confusing for a lot of people. It seems to be very confusing for a lot of people. So, first things first, running a node is completely different than mining. I guess you could call this episode a impromptu episode of terrible Bitcoin analogies using KaZaa, Napster, BitTorrent, and a whole bunch of other weird shit to try to wrap your heads around what the fuck is going on with Bitcoin mining and nodes and nodesing and shit like that. Anyway, so to get right to it, this is just my opinion on it. You know how they call Bitcoin a peer-to-peer digital cash system, right? So you have to think about, like, where the fuck else have I ever heard about peer-to-peer before? And for a lot of people, the only real experience you might have with something like that is with Napster or KaZaa or BitTorrent. And if you never have, then this video isn't for you. But peer-to-peer essentially means that, like, I'm sending you a file directly from my computer, and whenever you had, like, KaZaa back in the day or Napster back in the day, if you wanted to download a song, essentially what happens is that, like, you know, Joe Schmo from Utah or Kansas has the MP3 in his hard drive, and with the program like KaZaa or Napster, BitTorrent, he's able to broadcast his data to the internet directly to somebody like me, that when I use the client, I can then download the file directly from his computer. And that's why way back in the day, people used to get letters from Metallica and shit like that. So, you know, suing them for, you know, using Napster. So what the fuck does that have to do with Bitcoin? Well, it's peer-to-peer. And that kind of, like, is the first step that helps you understanding as to, like, what a Bitcoin node is, for example. So, you know, I did mention a Bitcoin node and Bitcoin mining is different. So what the fuck do you need a node for? What the fuck is mining for? So mining, just to give you a very, very quick synopsis, is mining is actually running a supercomputer that processes transactions, in a sense, on the Bitcoin blockchain. Really what a miner does, a miner is like a servant to the Bitcoin network, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the block reward. And every 10 minutes, a new block reward is, you know, is like distributed. You know, it's about 6.25 Bitcoin right now. And that's essentially what all the miners are doing. Now, the nodes, they're a little bit different, because the nodes, what they do is they transmit transactions, and they essentially kind of like broadcast rules to the network, right? So in order to, how do I explain this? In order to use Bitcoin, you need to use a node. There's no way to use Bitcoin to broadcast a transaction on Bitcoin, to send something to somebody else on Bitcoin, without using a node. And the benefit that you get from using a node is that you get to send the transaction yourself. So going back to, like, the Napster or KaZaa example, whenever you send a transaction, like let's say on Coinbase or on Cash App, or even if you have like a hardware wallet and you use Trezor Suite or the Ledger software, what you're doing is you're using the Ledger node to broadcast that transaction to the blockchain. And how is that? How do we use a terrible analogy to understand that? And the way that I would explain it is by saying that, like, so using like something like Ledger Desktop or Trezor Suite and using it with their node, that's like going to one of your friends and being like, yo, can you download a BitTorrent for me and then find a file and download it for me and then put it on a USB so I can watch it at home. That's kind of what you're doing when you're using somebody else's node. So the benefit that you get when you use your own node is that you like verify your own Bitcoin. So, you know, Coinbase is running their own node and they're verifying the Bitcoin all the time with it. And so when they send a transaction to you, what your node does is that it takes their Bitcoin and then it verifies it, and it says like, yeah, this Bitcoin was distributed on X date, and this shit is real. And that's kind of like what a node does. So you can think of a node as being kind of like an app, and it's like the only way you can send something on the blockchain. And a lot of times people don't understand why you should run a node. And one of the reasons that you should run a node is because it's the only way to know that it's actually like real Bitcoin that you're transacting with. That's the only way that you know, it's like, yeah, you could trust your friend a lot to get the movie for you using KaZaa or get the song, but unless unless you went to go buy the CD to the store yourself and rip the song yourself, you're never gonna know that there was an issue with the song. Maybe he ripped it in a shitty way. Like I said, this is a fucking terrible analogy, but it does help you wrap your head around what the differences between a node and a miner are a little bit, because a lot of times people do have that peer-to-peer system point of reference. I don't really think that there's a really good reference to mining other than just working, because that's what you're doing. And then it's just kind of like, just to give you guys, like, I don't really try to get too technical, because I do want to like talk in like the common language or the common tongue. But you can think of like, it's a system of checks and balances. The nodes dictate the rules of the network, and they are able to broadcast a transaction, as in like, hey, like they're able to seed the file. And what the miners do is they're like constantly scanning for the transactions that the nodes broadcast. And then they're like, all right, you broadcasted this transaction, you're gonna pay me X amount, so I'm gonna take it to the endpoint that you told me to go to. And then it becomes like this consensus thing where like, all right, so I'm using my hash power to direct this motherfucker's transaction across the blockchain, and everyone else starts checking my transaction. And that's kind of like a really shitty way to think about it. Anyway, that's a little bit of a video that I did want to put out. It's a common topic, and I probably could have done way better at explaining it, but I just wanted to get something out on it. Another terrible Bitcoin analogy. The reason why it fails is because it's hard to understand. It's so fucking complex. Like, your Napster or your BitTorrent doesn't have a way of verifying the authenticity of the movie. It doesn't have a way of verifying the authenticity of the song. Like if I have Napster and I'm seeding fucking the real Slim Shady, Napster or KaZaa or BitTorrent is just gonna seed whatever the fuck is on my computer, right? It's not gonna like actually somehow ping a database to make sure that I'm broadcasting the right song. And that's actually, you can think of like that like that's what the Bitcoin node does do. It checks to make sure that the Bitcoin was real. It makes sure to check that the Bitcoin was minted on the block that it says it was minted, and that it followed a valid blockchain, the proof of work chain. So yeah, I do hope that helps you wrap your head around what's going on between the difference of a node and a miner. And yeah, so this video is getting kind of long. Like, comment, subscribe. You guys know I hate fucking asking, but this is J Talks Crypto, and I'm signing off.